Most people were taught that anger is the problem, that it means you are too much, too reactive, too sensitive, that it is something to apologize for, or suppress or manage before anyone sees it. But what if anger is not the problem at all? What if it's trying to protect something you have not been allowed to feel yet? Take one breath with me before we go in. Inhaling through the nose and slowly exhaling. If anger is something you carry a lot of, or something you're afraid of in yourself, I want you to feel safe in this conversation. We are not going to judge here, we are just here to understand it. If you're new here, my name is Holly. This channel is about coming back to yourself through body awareness, sound, nervous system regulation, and the kind of inner work that moves you from knowing something to actually living it. This is the second video in the Emotions and the Energetic Body series. If you have not watched the first one yet, I will link it down here in the comments because it gives you the foundation for everything we are building in the series. Today we are going into anger. And I mean really going into it, not just the surface level anger management conversation, the real one. The one about what anger is actually protecting and why so many people are either terrified of their anger or drowning in it, and what it is asking you to pay attention to. So let me start with something that might shift how you see this entirely. Anger is a protective emotion. It does not usually show up on its own. It shows up in front of something else, in front of grief that has not been allowed to be felt, in front of fear that feels too vulnerable to admit, in front of a boundary that has been crossed so many times the body stopped asking nicely and started demanding it to be heard. I have sat with people in sessions over the years who came in saying they had an anger problem, and almost without exception underneath the anger was something much softer. A younger part of them that had been hurt and never acknowledged, a truth they had been swallowing for years, a loss they had not been given permission to grieve. The anger is not the problem. The anger is doing its job. It was standing in front of the door, making sure nothing else got in until it felt safe enough to let something real come through. So what is your anger protecting? For a lot of people, it is grief. Grief over a relationship, a version of themselves, a childhood, a life that did not go the way it was supposed to, grief that was never safe to feel. So the body converted it to something that felt stronger, something that felt less exposed. For others, it's fear. Fear of being abandoned, of not being enough, of repeating a pattern they swore they would never repeat. And because fear can feel too vulnerable to admit, especially for people who learned early that vulnerability was not safe, the fear becomes anger instead. For others, it is a boundary. Something in them that knows a line was crossed, a need was ignored, a truth was dismissed, and the anger is the body's way of saying it is not okay, even when the voice has not found the words yet. None of this means you let anger run the room. None of this means you let anger run the room. It does not mean every angry reaction is automatically justified. But it does mean that before you try to manage or suppress it, or apologize for it, it is worth asking one question. What is this anger protecting? Here is what happens when anger does not have anywhere to go. It does not disappear, it moves inward. It becomes the chronic tension in the jaw, the shoulders, the hips. It can become resentment that just sits just below the surface and colors every interaction. It becomes numbness, a kind of shutdown where you stop feeling much of anything because feeling the anger felt too dangerous. Anger felt too dangerous? I think that's what I'm saying. Okay. Some people carry decades of unexpressed anger in their bodies without even realizing it. It shows up as stiffness, as fatigue, as a low hum of irritability that never fully goes away. The body does not forget what the mind tries to push past. And the goal is not to express every angry feeling at full volume. The goal is to stop pretending it's not there. So when you feel anger come up this week, instead of immediately acting on it or pushing it down, try this. Put one hand on your chest. Ask yourself, what is this protecting right now? You do not have to have an answer immediately. Just ask the question. Just the question is enough to start shifting the relationship. And then notice what is underneath. Is there something softer there? Is there something that feels more vulnerable than anger? Something that has not had a chance to be heard yet. That is where the real work is. Anger is not your enemy. It is one of the most loyal messengers your body has. It shows up when something matters, when something is taken, when something needs to be said, when a part of you that has been silent for too long finally decides to stop being quiet. The work is not to be silenced. The work is not to silence it. The work is to listen to what it came to say. So in the next video, we're going to go into anxiety. Because just like anger, anxiety is not only a thought pattern, it is a body state. And understanding that changes everything about how you work with it. So I'll see you in the next video.